What is going on, guys? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to build a polling application using Flask and Python, and we're going to use interesting concepts like templates, redirection, and even cookies. So let us get right into it. Alright, so let's get started. Now for this video today, please excuse the background noises. I think my neighbors are doing some construction work, so you might hear some stuff in the background here and there. I hope you can somewhat ignore it. Now, we're going to start here by installing the packages that we're going to use for this video today. The most important one being Flask, which is a Python web framework. We're going to use it to build the whole web application. And we're also going to use pandas because we're going to store the information on the various polls and the voting. On these polls, we're going to store all of that in a CSV file, and we're going to load that CSV file and write into that CSV file using pandas. So those are the two packages we're going to need today, and for this we're going to open up the command line and we're going to type pip install Flask and pandas. Now in my case, I already have them installed. I can still run that command. You're going to see that everything is already satisfied. In your case, it will probably start the installation if you don't have these packages. So after we have the packages installed, we're going to just open up a new Python file. We're going to call it app.py, and this is going to be the only Python file in this video today. This is going to be our Flask application, and all the other files are going to be HTML files because they're going to be the templates. Flask uses a templating engine called, I think it's pronounced Jinja2, like Jinja2. And this templating engine interacts with the Python code. So we can pass certain Python objects into that templating engine, and then we can work with the objects in the HTML file directly. So for that, we're going to also create a new directory. We're going to call it templates. And in here, we're going to have our HTML files. Now, in the Python file, the first thing we want to do is we want to import pandas as PD, and from Flask we want to import Flask itself for the application. We want to import render templates so that we can render templates. Obviously, we want to import redirect, we want to import request, we want to import URL4, and we want to import make response. Now, I'm going to talk about all these different functions when we use them, but basically this is for the application itself. This is for rendering templates, for taking the HTML files, passing stuff to them, and so on and so forth. Redirect is for redirecting as a response to another endpoint or to another URL. Request is so that we can access the data that is passed in a post request, for example. URL4 is a function that gives us dynamically the correct URL for a given function, for a given endpoint. And make responses we're going to use so that we can set cookies on the client side here. So those are the imports. We're also going to use from core Python import os.path because we want to check if certain files exist already. And after the imports, we're going to just define the Flask app as being equal to Flask __ name. So in this case, app. And we're going to say that the template folder is templates. That is the application. Now, all we need to do here is we need to define certain endpoints. So for example, I can say index is a function. I can say app.route, and I can say that index is just slash, so the default URL, and here I can just return something like hello world, for example. Now, in order to run all of this, what we need to do is we need to go down here. We need to say if __ name equals __ actually in strings __ main __. Then what we want to do is we want to say app.run. We want to say that the host is going to be equal to localhost. The port is 5000 by default, I think. And then we're going to also say debug equals true so that we can reload. And now when I run this, I should be able to see a simple hello world. There you go, because that is the default URL. And we can work with that now. So what we want to do is we want to have a basic application where people can vote on different polls. So we can have a question, we can have a poll, we can have, in this video, we're going to just stick with 3 options. We don't want to dynamically add n options. We're going to say we have option 1, 2, 3. You can customly choose what you want those options to be, but we're going to have only 3. So we can have a question, we can have 3 options, and then we have the voting for those 3 options. So by default, every option is going to have 0 votes, and then users can vote on these options. That's the basic idea, and all of this will be stored in a CSV file called polls.csv. So we're going to say here If not os.path exists, this is why we import os.path. If the path polls.csv, if the file polls.csv does not exist, what we're going to do is we're going to define first of all the structure by saying structure equals, and we're going to just have a simple dictionary with the respective columns. So we're going to define a dictionary, then we're going to turn it into a pandas data frame, then we're going to write it into a CSV file. So we have an empty ID list, we have an empty poll list, we have an empty option 1 list. Now we can copy this here and do the same for 2, 3. And then we're going to say votes 1 is also an empty list. You can copy that. And change this again to 2 and 3. So the basic idea is we're going to have poll number 1 will have ID 1. It has the poll, I don't know, something like what's your favorite programming language? And we have Python, Java, C++, and then we have 1,000 votes here, 0 points here, and I don't know, 100 votes down here because no one likes Java. So that is going to be the structure, and we're going to take that structure now. We're going to turn it into a data frame by saying pd data frame. We're going to pass this structure here, this dictionary that is empty. We don't have any data. We're going to set the index being ID, and we're going to then take this and write it into a file, which is going to be polls.csv. That is the basic idea, and then either we had it before or it's now created empty, and we're going to then say the polls data frame, polls.df is going to be equal to pd read CSV, polls.csv, and we're going to set the index here to ID. That's the basic idea. So again, we check, does the file exist? If yes, just load it. Otherwise, create it with the structure, but without any values, and then load this as the data frame for this application. So this is what we're going to use here all the time. And for the index, what we want to do is actually just render a simple HTML file. We're also going to have 3 other endpoints. We're going to have the endpoint polls, where we're going to pass an ID. So this is going to have the following URL. We're going to say app.route, and we're going to have polls, and then here we're going to have this placeholder in angle brackets ID, basically meaning that we have a URL parameter. So people will say myfancypollingApp.com/poll/2, and this will lead them to poll number 2, poll with ID 2. That is the idea here. And what we want to do here is we want to just say the poll that we're selecting is just polls data frame.lock. So lock basically targets the index. The index is an integer, so we can just say int ID, because by default I think this is a string when we pass it through the URL. So basically what we do now here is we take the poll with the ID that was passed, and then we can print it if we want to, or we can render it later on. I'm going to just return here now the string version maybe of the poll. Later on, we're going to render this as a template or into a template. Then we also want to have another polls. We're going to call this create polls, and we're going to pass here, or actually create polls, sorry. This is going to have a similar route. So we're going to say route is going to be /polls, but without anything else. So just /polls, and we're going to allow for 2 methods here. So we're going to say methods equal get and post, meaning depending on whether we do get or post, we're going to get a different response here, or at least we can implement it like that by saying if the request.method equals, and then we can say get, then do one thing, elif the request method equals post. If that is the case, we can do something else. That is going to be the basic idea. And what we want to do here is when we send a get request to this endpoint, we want to get an HTML file with a form where we can create a new poll, and this form should then post on the same endpoint, and then we should get a new post, a new poll into the data set. That's the basic idea here. We're going to talk about this when we do the HTML files. And then finally, we also have the vote endpoint, which is going to take an ID and an option. Now, I'm not sure if ID is actually a good keyword. Now for this video, I'm going to just keep it like that, just because I already did it here and I don't want to change it here now. But basically, ID is a Python keyword, so when you can avoid that, just don't use ID. Use something like PID for poll ID. Don't use ID because that's a reserved keyword. It will still work, but it's just a very bad practice. So if you want to do this properly, what you would want to do is we would want to say here PID, and then down here also PID, and everywhere instead of ID, you just use PID. Probably also in the data set. But definitely in the endpoints and in the Python code. However, I'm going to keep it like that. Just know that this is not how you should be doing it. We're going to say now app.route is going to be vote, and we're going to vote here for a specific poll and a specific option. So for example, we're going to vote on poll with the ID 5 on option 2. That's the basic idea here. And what we want to do now is we want to say, actually, this is going to be something that we're going to post on. So for now, I'm just going to pass here. And we're going to start now with the HTML files. And the first HTML file that I want to create is the index.html file. So the start page, the home page, so to say. And this HTML file. Now, by the way, I think if you want to have the Jinja templating engine activated, so that when you say, for example, curly brackets %, that it automatically recognizes that you're doing something here with this templating engine. If you're using PyCharm, I think you have to go to settings, and I think you have to go to template languages here. So languages and frameworks, template languages, and then you need to select up here template language Jinja 2. Then it's going to recognize the code. Here we're going to now just say polling app Flask, whatever you want to call this. We're going to have a simple heading of size 3. We're going to say the polls are going to be down below. And here we're going to have a simple unordered list. And we're going to have a list item for each poll in the data set. So, for example, or not for example, how we're going to do this, we're going to say for key and value. So for this key value pair in polls.iterows, so we're going to take the polls data frame, we're going to iterate over it. By the way, if you don't understand why polls is accessible here, it is actually not yet. We're going to pass it here in this index function. We're going to, in a second, return render template. There we're going to pass the polls object, and this is why we can then access it here. As of right now, we could not access it because there is no polls in this HTML file, but we're going to pass it very soon. So we're going to iterate over the key value pairs. We're going to iterate over the rows of the data frame, and key value basically means we have the ID, which is the key, the index of the data frame, and we have the value, which is basically a dictionary where we have the poll question, the options, the votes, and stuff like that. And we always need to say end for as well in this templating engine. And now all we do here is we say for each key value pair, we want to have a list item. In that list item, we want to have a simple link with the following reference here. So leading to the following location. Here we're going to use again the templating engine to say URL_4. This is again a Flask function that gives us dynamically the URL for a given endpoint. What we want to do is we want to go, when we click on a specific poll, we want to get to that respective poll page. So we're going to have a separate HTML file where we're going to inspect specific polls in detail. So we're going to have poll 1, 2, 3, 4, and when I click on them, I want to get on a special page only for that respective poll. And this is what we have here. This is this polls endpoint where we target a specific ID. So what we want to do here is we want to target this polls endpoint. By the way, we don't target the name here. We don't target this URL here. We target the function name. So when I say that I'm looking for the URL for polls, it's actually looking for the function. So even if I call this here something like that, this is what I would have to look for when I use URL for, not this here. So we're going to get the URL for polls, and we're going to pass the following parameter. ID is going to be the key, because as I said, the key in this iterows loop here is the ID, the index of the respective poll. That is going to be it. Now, I think as of right now, this is not going to give us anything because we have an empty data frame. So first of all, we're going to say here now, instead of returning hello world, we're going to return render template, and we're going to render the template index.html. And we're going to pass here, since we're using, as I said here, we're using polls. Polls needs to come from somewhere. We're going to say here that polls is equal to polls data frame. So then we have the data frame in our HTML file. So I think this should just give us now an empty list. So we have polls and nothing. But if I change now this CSV file here manually, let's say I have one hello world, then I have A, B, C, and then 0, 0, 0, something like that. Then maybe I restart the application. Yeah, actually I forgot something. We need to also display the text of the poll here. So this is just a link. We have the link now here, but we don't have any text, and the text is going to be value. Again, remember, value is a dictionary when we have the individual columns as the keys, and we have the values of these respective fields as the values. So we're going to say here just poll. Remember, when we look at the structure, poll is the second field. In this case, it would be hello world, the name, the question of the poll, so to say. Let's restart this here. And now you can see we have hello world listed here. And if I have multiple polls with different IDs, let's say they're all the same, but they have different IDs, I can rerun this here, open this up, and we have these different links here. And you can see in the bottom left corner, you can see what the URL looks like. It's poll/1/2/3/4. And if I click on it, you can see I get the respective poll displayed here. All right. That's the basic idea of the index tab. We're also going to have a simple button down below that is going to lead us to the create endpoint. So we're going to say here, we're going to get the URL for, and we're going to get, come on, what's happening? We're going to get the URL for create_poll. And we don't need to pass anything here, so just like that. And then we're going to say create new poll. So I think this should automatically update if I'm not mistaken. We don't need to always restart the server. And you can see now we have this create new poll, which leads to polls. Here now we don't return anything, so this doesn't work yet. But this is basically what we're going to have in our index file. We're going to just list all the polls. We're going to have the links to those polls, to the detail page, so to say, and we're going to have a simple button or link that allows us to create a new poll. That's the basic idea of this tab. Now, we're also going to have the detail view, or the inspect poll, or the show poll HTML file. So we're going to just call this show poll.html. And here we're going to just say title inspect poll details, whatever. And the important thing here is that we're going to pass one specific poll. So we're still going to work with something that is passed to the template, but it's not going to be the full poll data frame. It's going to be just one particular poll. And for this, we're going to now just say we want to have a heading of size 3, and we want to say that what we want to display here at the top is the poll name or the question or whatever. In our case now, hello world. This is what we want to display here. And then we want to list all the options. We want to see what the current voting stand is. And we want to also be able to vote for the individual options with the respective buttons. So what we want to do here is we want to say a paragraph. We're going to have some bold text. The bold text is going to be poll option 1. So the text for option 1, for example, Python, Java, C++, whatever. Then we're going to have after this a colon, and then in normal font size, so not bold, we're going to say votes 1. So how many votes does this option get? And then after that, we're going to have a simple button, which is going to lead to a certain reference. I'm going to just add vote here, and we're going to say that this is going to be the URL_4 for the vote endpoint, with the ID being equal to the poll.name. Now, why do we use name now and not index or ID or key? Because when we have a Panda series, the name of the individual, or when we have one element of a Panda series, the name is the ID. So here to get the ID, we get the name. And the option is going to be, in this case, obviously 1. That should be it. Now we can copy that 2 times and we can say option 2, option 3, votes 2, votes 3, and here option equals 2, option equals 3. That's that. And at the bottom, we're going to have a simple link leading to URL for index, not HTML, because we're just targeting the function. And we're going to just say back so that we can navigate back to the index page. That is going to be our show poll. For this now, I think we need to change the endpoint though, because I think that our endpoint does not render yet. So we're going to say here return render template. We're going to render index, not index, sorry, show underscore poll.html. And the poll is going to be the poll. So we get the poll using the ID, and then we pass it to the template. This is what we use here all the time, and that should actually work. So let's open this up. Let's click on one of them, and now you can see we have the different options. Now, if I change something, you're going to also see that those are different options. So if I change this, for example, to hello people, and then I change this to hello YouTube, and then I change the options here to X, Y, and Z, or something like that, then I can reload the page, hopefully, or I think for this I need to restart because it otherwise doesn't load the CSV file again. But now you can see here, hello people, XYZ, I can go back, hello YouTube, I can go back. Now I cannot vote yet because the function doesn't do anything, but the URL already works. When you look at the bottom left corner, you can see vote 3, vote 2, vote 1. So vote 3/1, 3/2, 3/3. That's the basic idea here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to, let me think about this. Are we going to first do the voting, or are we going to first do the new form, the new poll? Let's first do the new poll, then we're going to do the voting. So we're going to create now a new HTML file, and we're going to call this one new poll.html. And here we're going to say the title is going to be create new poll. Heading of size 3, create new poll. And then we're going to have a simple form. The action of that form is going to target URL underscore for create poll. Like that. The method is going to be post, because in order to get this page, we're going to target the same endpoint, create poll, but we're going to do it with the method get to get this page in the first place, but then we're going to post on that endpoint to actually do something, to actually create a new poll. And in that form, we're going to have the following structure: label for poll. We're going to then say here poll text, colon, input, type text, name equals poll. This is why we have for equals poll, because name is poll. And then we're going to say placeholder is going to be poll text. Yeah, that is that. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste this here. We're going to say this is now for option 1. We're going to say option 1. We're going to say option 1, and we're going to say again option 1. And now it's simple. We can just copy this one, paste it 2 times. We're going to then change this to 2, to 3, to 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, and 3. And then finally, we want to have a submit button. So we want to say input type submit. The value is going to be create. Like that. That's quite simple. So what we want to do now in the Python file, in the actual application, is we want to say, okay, if we get a GET request on this endpoint, what we want to do is we want to say return render template new underscore poll.html. And if we get post, now first of all, let's see if that works. So let's open this up. Let's create a new poll. Now you can see this works. Let's add just a couple of line breaks here so that we have everything on a separate line. BR is going to be a line break. I'm going to add it here after each label. Create a new poll. There you go. Now it works. And what we want to do now is we want to get the information. So when I create this here, you can see that the post doesn't return anything meaningful. So we need to implement that here because we only have a pass statement now. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that we want to get the actual question, the actual title, by saying request.form. From this, we want to get the poll field. And then we want to say option 1 equals request form option 1. We're going to copy this 2, 3, 3, 2. And then we want to say now get the data frame where we have all the different surveys, get the following location, get the max ID that we have. So polls df dot index dot values, get the maximum value there, the highest index we have, add 1 to it. This is going to be now the new index, the next index, so to say, and create this new instance here, this new row by saying poll option 1, option 2, option 3, and then just 0, 0, 0, because we're going to have 0 votes for the 3 different options. Then we're going to take that. We're going to save that as a CSV file. So we're going to overwrite the existing file, polls.csv. And then we're going to return a redirect because we don't want to stay on this page. We want to actually redirect to that respective poll. So we're going to say redirect URL underscore for index. Actually, not that respective poll. We want to go to the index page. We want to only redirect to the same poll when we voted, but this is what we're going to do next here. So this should already work now. I should be able to now create a new poll. I'm going to just reload this. I'm going to create a new one by saying, what is your favorite programming language? Question mark. Python, C++, Java. Create. What is your favorite programming language? There you go. Now, all we need to do now is we need to do the voting. So here we're going to just simply say that we want to take the respective position. So polls.df. So we get a request onto this page. So we get a vote request, and what we want to do is we want to just get that respective poll with that respective option and increase it by 1. The votes for that we want to increase by 1. So polls.df at to get the respective position, int ID, so that respective poll we want to get, and here we want to say now votes plus str option, so votes 1, votes 2, votes 3. I want to take that and we want to say plus equals 1. And then we want to say polls.df to CSV, polls.csv. And then we can just return a simple redirect. But what I actually want to do, or let me first do it like that. So I'm going to just return here a redirect to URL for polls with the ID being equal to the ID, so that I get to the same poll again. This should already work. Vote. There you go. I can vote as many times as I want. I can also go back. I can go to a different one, vote here, go back, go to this one. And we can also see that in the CSV file, we will have the respective votes. So this works. The problem is, of course, we don't want everyone to vote a million times. And I'm not going to implement here a sophisticated mechanism to prevent people from voting 1,000 times. I'm going to keep it very simple here with a simple cookie. So it's going to be client-side and very easy to just circumvent. However, if you want to do this properly, you would have to use a login system. You would have to create, you would have to use Flask login so that people can create accounts and then vote for it. Or at least you would have to use something like the IP address or the name or something like that. I'm just going to set a cookie on the client side. And if the cookie is set for the respective poll, we're not going to be able to vote anymore. Of course, I can just clean the cookies and then I can vote again, but we're going to just keep it simple here. So we're going to say here, if request.cookies.get fstring, we're going to call the cookie vote underscore ID for the respective poll cookie. If that cookie is not present, so if the result of getting this is none, we're going to basically be able to vote because the cookie is not set yet. So we're going to do exactly the same thing here. And we're going to then say, instead of just redirecting directly, we're going to say response equals make response. We're going to then take this redirect here. And before we return that response, we're going to say response.setCookie. And then the same thing, vote underscore ID underscore cookie. We're going to set that cookie and the string is going to be the option so that we know what we voted for. And then, what's the problem here? Set cookie. Oh, I shouldn't be closing it here. I should be closing it here. And then we just return the response. Otherwise, if that cookie is already present, we're just going to return a simple message. Cannot vote more than once. There you go. And I think that should be it. We should be done now with the polling application. So I can go to this one here. I can vote for Java. Then I can try to vote again. Cannot vote more than once. This is true for all these options. However, I can go to a different one like here. I can vote for X, but I cannot vote anymore. Of course, if I clean my cookies, if I clear the browser history, the cache, everything, the cookies, I will be able to vote again as many times as I want. But this is at least something that we can do easily to prevent people from massively overvoting all the time. However, you can still vote 1,000 times if you want to. But this is how you build a simple polling application using Flask and Python. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you learned something. If so, let me know by hitting a like button and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to not miss a single future video for free. Other than that, thank you much for watching. See you in the next video and bye.